bunch of big tech companies got together and they said, we're going to make the metaverse interoperable. We're talking about Microsoft, Meta, formerly Facebook, Sony, you name it. Some folks weren't there, though, and I think that's the interesting part about this story. Apple wasn't there. Some of the other folks who've built more traditional Web2 metaverse experiences weren't there. And to me, the thing that stood out is that none of the Web3 metaverse players were there at all. So nobody from Decentraland, nobody from Sandbox, nobody from the Solana One portals. They weren't part of the conversation at all. So big tech giants are thinking about how do we make the metaverse interoperable, and what do we do in terms of making standards that can make that work. It's a conversation that we've seen occur in the Web3 space with some of the existing Web3 metaverses, but this is for the big Web2 boys on this one. So we'll talk about this. I'm going to throw it to Jen because it's the Metaverse Minute. We didn't get the Metaverse Minute wipe, unfortunately. I don't know what that's about, Control, but I'm going to toss this to Jen for her thoughts.
Control really failed us. Well, interoperability is needed when we talk about the metaverse, right? We have all of these companies building out their version of the metaverse, and for there to be really a seamless user experience, we want to be able to jump from metaverse to metaverse. So I think the conversation is important. But Zach, exactly to what you pointed out, this is a bunch of companies that probably have very different goals and very different visions for what the metaverse will look like for them. And I think that's the first problem. I think that we need to align on our goals and align on our vision before we can start creating standards, and to lock out the Web3 companies that are really at the forefront of thinking about what the metaverse can be. And like Roblox has the most, I would say, probably the most successful version of what a metaverse could be right now on the market. And the fact that they're not involved in this makes me wonder why. I would love for someone, Zach, maybe get on that, maybe ask the people at Roblox, why are they not involved in this? I would love to understand why, and maybe it has to do with how this is being organized and run. Wendy?
I think what I see happening from the story, and also cough, Gala Games. Yes, I've got a Fat Moon bag of Gala. But anyways, I think what we're seeing these traditional tech companies do, I think that they want to kind of isolate the market, and they don't want to work with any of the Web3 companies, because if they do work with the Web3 companies, it's going to take away from their market share. That's what I'm seeing by reading this. So we are going to have metaverse, we are going to have Web3, we are going to have all this gaming, all of these things, and it's all going to merge over. But I feel like these companies are in competition with themselves to create their own version of what works to kind of capitalize on the market. And you have to remember they're businesses, and that's the way that they've operated previously. Why would they want to be interoperable and work with each other when they can create their own ecosystems? Because in the past, have we really seen them work well with each other, building things, or have they kind of always stayed separate? That might be a question for somebody else to answer.
It's such a Web 2 way of thinking, right? Like if you really believe in what the metaverse can offer, and you really believe in this decentralized online world, and I haven't seen this commercial in Canada, but I've been in the States now for like the past month and a half, and that Meta commercial that is like, the metaverse is going to be this amazing thing, and surgeons are going to operate in the metaverse. It plays like every 10 seconds on TV. If we really believe in that, then why are we building committees like this? It doesn't make any sense. Zach?
Marketing ploy.
Oh,
those commercials have I swear, those commercials have such like IBM blockchain vibes to them, like supply chain on the blockchain, brought to you by IBM, your lettuce track and trace safety, from like 2018. Remember those, when there was all that spending on that? So we're seeing that version of this sort of manifest itself in these metaverse commercials. It's pretty striking to see. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's an early step here for making standards, and I think standards and interoperability is going to be really key, right? So that you can be your same virtual self in all these different walled gardens. That's great in terms of user experience, and I think that's something that, Web3 projects are thinking about too, right? You have the benefit of, a wallet being able to transport yourself around these different platforms in most instances, but this needs to be thought about in the Web2 context, and hopefully some progress is made here as this forum stands itself up. We got to get Will on the board here. Will, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I got to get my Metaverse Minute in here. The one thing that's interesting to me is, do all these projects that are involved with this standardization have a token, or do they not have a token? And I think that could be maybe something that sort of draws or separates things, right? So I don't have the 30 team list in front of me, but a lot of the teams that you guys were talking about there do have tokens, right? And so maybe there's something along those lines that is interesting here.
This is
I
not
don't
the
think
token
any of
crowd.
them
This is like
have a token.
This is not the token.
Yeah,
crowd.
so that's my point. Like they don't have a token, so maybe they just want to be like a little separate from it. So that's just one curiosity. I think we need to do more investigation because I got to look at the whole list. The one point I do want to make and throw it back over to Jen is that like when you're making Web3 standards, right? Ethereum got ahead of that with their ERC20 token. That became the de facto standard because they got ahead of everything. And so now Facebook or Meta and these other projects like NVIDIA are probably trying to do the same thing, right? They've also created a lot of standards. There's a lot of standards baked into these protocols as well that Facebook has built, that Microsoft has built. It's all about getting there first and then making everyone apply to your standards. So I'd say like on the flip side, it's to the benefit of Meta and NVIDIA and all of these people to get their standards aligned. And then it's on the other Web3 teams to get their standards aligned as well, right? And they all have competing tokens. They all have competing projects. So it can be hard to organize those things. That was sort of the benefit of Ethereum coming along with its central tenants, its central platform, its central EVM. Everyone could use that standard and build on top of it. These other metaverse projects, they're sort of all over the place, right? They're building on different chains, different standards, and I think they're sort of at a loss because they don't have the ability to work with each other all the time. Zach, your take?
Yeah, I was just looking at the press release, and like, you know, there's definitely talk of online economies, but really the only clue that this could have anything to do with crypto in some future form is the name of one company that's involved is 0x Senses. 0x obviously is what Ethereum wallet addresses start with, and that's how people kind of identify themselves in pseudonymous forms. So there is a little clue that someone who is thinking about blockchain and potentially Web3 metaverse experiences is involved in this through the form of a quoted person from 0x Senses. But otherwise, all mention of Web3 tokens, all that stuff is completely devoid in this press release. Wow. Any final thoughts here on the metaverse thing before we change gears?
Well, I think just before we change gears, Control has told me that our Metaverse Minute wipe is ready. And because I like embarrassment and also to see myself on the internet, we are just going to play it now.
I think we need a Metaverse Minute on this show.
I think we need a Metaverse Minute on this show.
Let's not do that again.